But the other one I want to talk about, the other game which has taken up most of my time, is Immortality.
Ooh.
And it's just coming out on. It's again a game from last year, maybe the year before, but it's coming out on PS5. So I very kindly got a code for the PS5 version, and it is not quite what I expected, but in a very good way, let's say. I did try Immortality last year on my mobile, and didn't
God.
like the way that you controlled things. So for people who don't know, Immortality, much like many of Sam Barlow's games, is a narrative game where you are. It's not quite like Her Story, but you're scrubbing through video clips, and you're scrubbing through video clips centered around 3 unreleased films that an actress has starred in, Marissa Marcel, I think her name is, and the game sets you up in the vein of what has happened to Marissa Marcel. She's disappeared from public life. Scrub through these sort of film clips and things to try and find this out, and I started this up with Kim. Kim loves her, kind of a not necessarily a choices kind of game, but like a bit of a mystery and that sort of stuff. And
you guys played the one of the Man and Medan.
No, we haven't. No, we played the one we played together was
What's the name called?
It was one by Supergiant, not Supergiant, Supermassive, not Until Dawn, but it was the one that you control on mobile, which I will never remember the name of for that. When PS4 was right in that kind of mobile controller sort of space. That's the one that we played together, which she enjoyed, and we thought, cool, we'll enjoy this. And after about 30 minutes, she's like, "Nah, I don't get it. I'm not really following. The clips aren't. You don't find them sequentially. Part of my issue with Immortality is you don't seem to, when you do. Well, I suppose to explain, you basically get one video clip. You scrub through it. You can go into kind of discovery mode. I can't remember exactly what that's called, and then you click on something within the screen, and it will find a clip which has something like that or something similar in, and you unlock clips by doing that over and over and over again. So clicking on actors or people's faces will bring up another scene that they are in, or clicking on clapperboards. So a lot of this shows sort of the film scene, and it doesn't necessarily just show you the scene. It shows the clapperboard, it shows them maybe talking before or afterwards, it's got interviews, it's got, for one of the films, they do like little behind the scenes sort of videos on a handheld camera and things like this. So you're going through all of these, discovering items or people or things that might link you to other clips. And my biggest issue with Immortality is I cannot figure out, or it doesn't seem to have any method to this. So I like click on a character and it's like, cool, here's another scene with the character, and I'm like, okay, cool, fine. There's something in the background, there's an interesting statue. I wonder if, because this is an interesting scene, has that statue been in a different scene? I click on the statue and it brings me up in a scene with a completely different statue, but is classified as statue. It's not the same one. It doesn't unlock more of that sequence of the film.
So this is like early internet using tagging, but the tags were like non-specific and too big.
Yes.
Like metadata, but not.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Sorry, that's
but it's and I don't know. I because it very much at the start comes up saying it's this method of searching for things and looking through clips and stuff, which is something I'm unfamiliar with. It could have been anything. Could have told me it was anything, and I would just go, okay, fine, that's how it is. But it took me about an hour of playing before I realised the whole control pad was vibrating at certain parts during these clips and wanted me to look at other things and discover the kind of the hidden parts of the scenes.
I learned about this because I heard people reviewing this, and two people had vastly different interpretations of the game because one was playing a controller and one was playing on a non-haptic feedback device. And they were like, "Wait, what? There's a thing?"
Yeah.
So I find this super interesting because you were actually on the haptic feedback device, but it wasn't like clicking. So
Well-
you had the like negative experience of the one like. So I thought this was like, oh, you just need to play this on the controller. But you, without being given the heads up, had the same experience of, what the fuck? Oh, I've missed an entire vector of this game.
Absolutely, absolutely. And
Well,
I think
it does take a. I think that's just the natural progression of the game. It doesn't want you to realize that first and foremost. It may even obscure that. It may even maybe there's something built into it where it doesn't reveal that. And the first couple times you watch that exact scene, I'm not sure, but it took me probably about the similar amount of time to be. I knew that the controller was rumbling, but I just didn't know the reason for it.
yes,
And
yeah,
then it's finding out what you can do with the scrubbing and with the controls to
So this is why
manipulate
the
that.
person
But
who didn't even have that feedback,
yeah,
like
that's why I
it
told
clearly.
Ben 2 years ago. It was like, don't play it on.
yes, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And I
Use a controller.
I thought, okay, it's giving me something called pause it. It's vibrating, pause it, and it must be click on this person or click on this item or click on this object to take me to another scene. Maybe that's the way that it does it. And you know, not to, well, I don't want to spoil Immortality, I don't want to spoil a 2-year-old game for people too much. But there are kind of scenes within scenes, and I think that is done exceptionally well. I think that is such an amazing feature to have baked into this game, because this could have been just a straight up kind of sequel to Her Story and just a similar-ish kind of thing, but in a slightly different vein. You know, piecing together film clips rather than interviews and that sort of stuff. But the kind of the world that lives beneath those clips is both really interesting to try and understand the motivations and the characters and all of that sort of stuff. But I think it's really like it just as a again starting to uncover, and I must have over 100 film clips now,
Already unlocked, yeah.
but trying to run through them and understand the story that's kind of beneath the making of the films and the films themselves and the scenes and the and a lot of the just mirroring of the characters and this understory and those characters to what's going on in the films themselves and the storylines of those films just works very, very well. Like this is written so phenomenally once you start to understand that there's this extra layer to this game rather than, oh, it's just some films that I'm just kind of scrubbing through.
Yeah, I have way more respect for this game than I actually like it. That initial that initial reveal was like, very striking and will live in my memory. But I have way more respect for like the technical aspects of like editing that footage together and the cinematography and the attention to detail and the fact that these films you could be convinced that they are films from like the 60s and the 70s and the
Production value
90s or
for my
whatever.
film is
Yeah,
great.
yeah, it's insane. The kind of like uh underlying meta story and that, as I say, I won't spoil it, but it's more to do with heady philosophical, concepts and how people view art and stuff. Didn't care for it. So it was just like, yeah, I have way more respect for it on a technical point of view and like cinematography than I ever did for the story.
Sure.
But yeah, that's why it's overall a very impressive package. It just didn't sew everything up together for me in the end because this is something that people, whatever message they were trying to convey, people will take their own spin away from it and take their own meanings from it. Whereas I'm just like, huh? I was like, what? What are you trying to tell me? Maybe I'm just not sophisticated enough, but it's like that's where that game let me down.
Sure.
But everything else is just is just so well done, and the quality and the, the technical feat that is that game, it's incredible. But if you're not into any of those things, like I'm not someone who's massively enamored by like different cinematography, but I could respect it, and I could I know nothing about editing, but it's like I can respect it. But if you're not into those things and you are a passive viewer, like Kim is, you're not even getting the haptic feedback of the
Yes,
controller.
yeah.
I could see why you'd fall off it immediately.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah.
Yeah, I think if she'd have been controlling it, she might have been a bit more invested in what was going on. Because as soon as I worked that out, as soon as I understood the mechanic and that there was this extra layer to it, suddenly the 50 scenes or 20 to 30 scenes that I'd unlocked, I'm like, oh, I now have to go back into every single scene, and I'm looking at this game completely differently to how I was, and now I'm favoriting. I'm like, because you can on the kind of the board of where you can see just an image of each of those clips, and it lays them out. Like, I'm just like, oh well, why am I, they're just there, fine. You can set them in date that they were filmed, or in chronological order to this, or scene order, let's say. And some of that fills in between the actual scene itself that's being filmed, or an auditioned version, or an early storyboarding kind of version of these films, but of the scenes, and it fills that out really, really nicely. But you can favorite clips and look at the things that you've clicked on in all of those clips as well, to see exactly what you're kind of tracking through, to be able to go back in and scrub through stuff. It's the idea again that I then got several hours through, and some scenes you do the mechanic, or you kind of you figure out what the mechanic is, and you do it, and it just switches into maybe a scene that's within it. But actually you can, some of them where you might see a bit of an over image that just kind of like comes over the top of the scene as it's kind of playing out, you can actually track that, and you can slow it right down, or you can speed it up, and you can reverse it really slow or reverse it really fast, and that again changes the quality of the image coming through, and then that might trigger another scene that kind of kicks in. So there's lots of sort of nuance as well within each of those bits, and how you actually find all of these things, whether you think, oh, this is just it's not really anything. One scene was just a character dancing and dancing for like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
I'm like,
yeah.
Okay, cool.
In a very mad looking way.
Yes.
But I completely forgot to well, it's been 2 years, but I completely forgot how like a lot of the mysteries in that game are actually to do with the films that you are piecing together, like just figuring out the actual plot of those
Yes,
films.
yeah.
That was more interesting to me,
Okay.
especially the one that looked like a really low budget 90s film. Was figuring those out was like more of a accomplishment, and felt, I mean, they're really dumb storylines, some of them, but it's like even figuring that out was satisfying, and a bit more satisfying than the overall mystery, I'll say. But
Okay.
yeah, it's just that 90s one with like the bad wigs, it's just so good. It's just like so of its time. It's just like, yes, this is a film that came out in 1996, and that would have starred I don't know, Sarah Michelle Gellar or something.
Yes, absolutely. Yes,
Definitely.
completely. I think it's acted very well as well. It's
The
kind of
actors are fantastic.
but it's just that weird, like, you're acting, but you're playing an actor acting a character. So there needs to be you can't just play that character. You have to be the actor being the character, and embody the actor, embody the character that you're playing, then playing another character. And I think a lot of that works very, very well, because there's a lot of like tonal shift between the sort of the cast, sort of when they're acting versus when they're kind of talking about the characters, or just talking between themselves, or maybe kind of discussing the scene and those kinds of stuff. That you feel that those people, they are actors, but they are actors in that time and place,
Yeah, they
embodying that role
completely
and
sell
that
it.
sort of stuff. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
they completely sell it, and yeah, that is another standout of the game. The acting is fantastic, so yeah, that goes a long way. Um, yeah, it's something that I wanted to like more.
Mm.
It just didn't land it for me. Same with Telling Lies. That didn't, land it. But I think even her story, you could argue that it's like uh, the actual what comes before, like the big reveal, so to speak, is the satisfying part of it, and the bit that is, you know, technically impressive. So and novel. So yeah, it's a game I'll never forget, but
Mm.
it didn't crack like my top 10 that year or anything, just because oh it just needed to do a bit more to sew things together. It's like
Yeah.
it's more the why am I doing this? Yeah, I
Yeah,
just don't feel like it 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 nailed that purpose for me personally. But as I say, I'm not
Mm.
someone who will philosophically debate art.
Well, I
I'll
think
I'll just watch it and let it go into my
mm,
eyeballs, and that's
I
it.
think
Yeah.
there could have been, especially if you're, if you've uncovered a lot of the scenes, um, and sort of the story beneath them, and actually
Mhm.
how the kind of the characters translate through this kind of timeline, and then the kind of not necessarily the ending, but I've had an
Mm.
ending and I've rolled credits, but there's actually more
Oh,
endings
okay.
to this as
Mhm.
well.
Mhm.
But the one that kicked in for me, it gives a big suggestion. And I think if they'd had, or if the start of this had made more out of you're this person going through these clips because you have to do it for this reason, or they've
Mhm.
mysteriously turned up because you're a filmographer or some shit like that, if they've given you a little bit more impetus as to why you're
Yeah.
doing it at the start of the game, those impacts would have been just that little bit bigger.
Yeah.
So it's like the idea of when there's loads of horror films and stuff where like a film mysteriously turns up and people watch it and suddenly they're haunted by
Yeah.
a fucking thing, and if it had given a little bit more setup to
Yeah.
why you are there and doing this, I think that would have translated just that little bit better.
Yeah, for me,
Yeah.
for sure. I need Key Stage 2 level Goosebumps kind of plot to understand what was going on. So, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
good. And I think I don't know whether it's got the tag of being like a horror, but it's not really. There isn't sort of any. It's like a
No,
mystery. It's more like a
it's
drama, isn't it?
unsettling. Like it's definitely unsettling. There are moments of that are quite, shocking as well.
Yeah.
Like when you're not expecting it as well.
Mm,
But it it verges on the very safe edge of horror. But yeah,
yes.
you wouldn't categorize it as a horror game for sure. But
Mm, mm.
there are parts where it's like, I think I started. I think I started it like the day it came out or something like
Really?
that because it was on Game Pass. Yeah, and I was
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
Friday, chill out, play this, and it was like, late at night, and it's like, oh, this is getting a bit spooky,
Yeah.
because at that point you don't know what's going on. You
Mm,
don't know what the reveal is, and you don't know how far that rabbit hole's going to go and stuff like that.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah,
It,
that initial reveal of the game's mechanics is exceptional.
yeah. Yeah. And I won't sort of, again, not trying to spoil too much, but I think for me it happened on quite a pivotal scene. So I'd
Was it a
gone.
sex scene?
No, it wasn't a sex scene. No.
Okay, you
Um,
weren't scrubbing through the sex scene. Going, ooh, let me have a look at
no,
that.
no.
Okay.
It was one with a. It was a scene towards the end of the first film,
Right.
with a tree and a big painted kind of background,
Yeah.
and that scene. And suddenly, when it
Exactly what you're
switched,
on
I'm
about.
like,
Mm.
where have the characters gone?
Mm-hmm.
And then it sort of then that scene within sort of kicks off, and I'm like, holy shit!
Yeah.
Like for me, that was just like it was a big moment. It was a big sort of like
Yeah.
mind blowing
'Cause it's so
moment. I'm like,
seamless as
it
well.
is
Yeah.
really seamless.
And
Absolutely.
it's like your eyes are doing tricks on you.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, very, very well made. Really, really well made. And I think, as I said, it's not it's not the sequel to her story, but it's very much an evolution again, I haven't played Telling Lies either, so I don't know what that step up between those kinds of games are, but it does feel like similar to Her Story in terms of what you're doing and sequencing kind of clips and things like that, but it just takes it to that next level completely.
Yeah.
And it has got me thinking, oh, I should go back and play Telling Lies now. Maybe that is slightly more suited to me and Kim sitting down together and playing it. And
it's that is also very well acted, and I think that's where, yeah, I respect that game for its acting and the way it's you know, the things are spliced together, and the presentation of it in terms of what the overall story was. Again, it just let me down.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, see how you get on with that. I'm glad to have experienced all these games, but yeah, I don't think anything will hit like Her Story. Just because it was novel at the time, you
Absolutely.
know. But yeah, Immortality certainly has some very high highs. So
yeah. Nice, good.
www.outoflives.net